Hey, what's going on?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing good. Can't complain.
Yeah, sorry. So, can you tell me a little bit about your? Are you Muslim or? Uh,
Um, no, no, not Muslim.
okay, great. So do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself? What brings you to the room?
Uh, from the title, it said why Islam.
I think there's like a plethora of reasons. So it's so much more. One second. Yeah, I think it's more, so much more than I can even like really articulate. I guess this this these past few days I've been wanting to focus on morality, ethics, society, and talk about Islam from that standpoint. I think Islam offers us a very complete and perfect moral a moral system, a system of justice, and so that's one of the reasons I would say why Islam.
Can you elaborate? Why do you say it's a moral system?
Yeah, so Islam has this concept of like Sharia, and it's just like a system, a way of like how to like live your life. And I think when I compare like Sharia to like the current, let's say the current system we have, or even any ideal system, it seems like Sharia does offers us
So
much better.
explain your definition of Sharia. You referring to Sharia law, right? Correct.
I disagree with what? Sorry.
Are you referring to Sharia law? So you have you read the remnants of the traveler?
List of the Traveler? No,
Yeah.
I'm not.
Okay. So that's literally one of the key books of the Sharia law. It's written by Ibn Aman. I think it's a Mercy. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's a Muslim imam. He's one of the top scholars of the Sharia law. He created that whole book, and based upon the Sharia law, that's what he writes about. So if you read that book, it breaks down the whole understanding about the Sharia law. And I think if you read that, you will see that Sharia law is not a moral standard for anybody.
Can you give me a second? I just want to. Hey, put on your shirt. Put on your shirt. Go put on your shirt. Um, can you give me a second? I just want to look that up real quick because it's good to just save and then I can look into it later. Um, who did you say the author was?
Yeah, my bad. It's the Reliance of the Traveler. The Reliance of the Traveler. I put it in the chat for you right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, and
Yeah. So
I can't see it in the chat.
I'm gonna put it in right now.
Oh, okay.
It's called a Reliance of the Traveler, and the writer is by Ibn Ahmad. I don't know how to say his name. I don't know how to pronounce Arabic names that well, but that if you type it in on Google, it literally pops up the first book.
Okay,
It's a
yeah,
gr- it's,
I see
it's a
it.
gr- it's a green book. Yeah, that's literally what the Sharia law will be stand upon. That's the main source of the Sharia law. So in that book, it has multiple things about how the Sharia law will be handled. If you agree with that, then the Sharia law is meant for you. But for what it stands for and all the things it talks about, literally, this is why a lot of Muslims when they research the Sharia law. That's why when I ask you, like, you know about what you ask, what's the definition of Sharia law? I study these things, and a lot of Muslims who study these things, end up leaving Islam because of this reason right here.
Oh, sorry, one second, one second.
But it's actually a YouTuber that actually is an ex-Muslim, but also he became a, FBI agent and he studied the Sharia law. It's really interesting what he found out. I'm trying to find his name.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry about that. I had some stuff in the background. Okay. Yeah. This looks like a good primary textbook, or a good treatise, or a book. And I guess yeah. So I guess I'm not clear what the issue is.
Yeah, so uh, I mean, I could tell you it, but I think it's better for you to also research it yourself as well too. But there's a lot of different things that are in there that that well probably I don't know uh trigger a couple of things. Like for one example, uh the death penalty as far as leaving the faith. Do you believe that that's moral?
Yeah. So um, I don't believe that there is a death penalty for leaving the faith.
So read that book right there. It breaks down why uh, is it according to the Quran. It breaks down the teaching of Muhammad from the Hadiths. It gives you complete reasons based upon scholarship. So that book, Remnants of the Traveler, breaks down on page 595. It talks about leaving the faith, and he talks about in that book it says leaving the faith is to be killed. Leaving Islam is the ugliest thing of an unbelief and the worst. It may become through. So he literally breaks down why, and then he said the first thing you is not this killing them right away. It's first asking them first to return to Islam. If they refuse not to, the kafir must be killed. They must kill him. That's literally what it says in there. And even Muhammad also mentions about killing those who fall lead the faith. Whoever insults the prophet is to be killed, whether he's a Muslim or a disbeliever. So even Muhammad promotes killing even Muslims. So
I don't know if it's your connection or mine, but sometimes the connection's a bit off. But I did hear you. I did hear what you're saying. Um, uh, so I just want to say that if you believe that, I think that's fine.
I don't believe it.
No.
I'm,
I'm saying,
I'm
wait. Yeah, I'm saying, if you believe that that is the view in Islam, then I'm saying that's fine for you. I don't believe that. Uh, I'm saying, like, there. I don't believe that there's death penalty in Islam. I get that you're referencing these sources. I get that.
Mhm.
Um, but I just want us to be aware of the fact that this is going to slightly turn this into a more of like an interpretive thing.
No.
And I'm
So
wait,
my main statement was I'm quoting from the book of your sources. So you mentioned the Sharia law. I give you the this book right here. That's part of your faith. So the same thing. If you show me a book in my faith and I rely on it, it's different from us Christians because we don't rely on man. You rely on scholarships, scholars, imams, sheikhs, Muhammad, all their teachings. That's your main source of reliability upon your faith. Correct? You credit them as authoritative. Correct? The
uh,
Quran is
uh,
first, and then you have your scholars, then you have your prophet, you have all these people, you have all these sources that you have to follow. Are you a Sunni?
I want to repeat that. I think your connection's a bit uh,
Let me take my
it's a
like.
bit choppy.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's much better now.
Okay, so the Quran is always first in any Islam for Muslim, but the second thing is the prophet. Then you have your scholars, your and then and your imams and your sheikhs. these people you follow as authoritative, right? Correct. If they say that this came from the prophet or came from a reliable source, is it authoritative? Do you have to follow it?
Not necessarily. No, the scholars, like, it's always open to interpretation.
So
So
you
it
so
could,
you so you could interpretate scripture over an imam or a sheikh.
yeah. So
That's what I'm saying. So if I show you a scripture, if I show you something that the imam, sheikh, or any kind of caliph or whoever you want to say, whoever we point to, and I show you what they say quotation, do you have to say that they know what they're talking about versus you?
just just you gotta let me answer.
Oh,
So
go
if
ahead.
you, yeah, if you ask me a question, uh you can't interrupt me like mid sentence, unless that's kind of what you want. So I just kind of, let's take a step back, because I've seen a lot of these things online, and I just want you to like be, I just want you to know what you're getting yourself into. I'm not a online YouTuber or a debater. I know a lot of people, like, when they debate Islam and stuff like that, and it's very popular. I don't do that. I'm not an apologist either. So I like to talk to people about Islam, but I would consider myself more of like an aspiring academic. I'm not an academic, but I would like to be. So I take this stuff very seriously. Um, if you wanted to, if you want to, I think you're misinformed, but I think it's fine. It's fine if you have this view. I don't want to press you. I don't want to like change your mind. But if you have this view, I think it makes sense from your standpoint. I just don't follow that line of reasoning. That's not how I access sources. That's not my understanding of Islamic law. I don't just go to one book of fiqh, right? So if you're interested, I can share with you why I believe, why I don't adopt your approach.
Hmm.
But I
Yeah,
but
I'll open to hear from you. I'm not
but
gonna say I
but
don't.
I don't I
Yeah.
don't mind that. But I just very quickly want to say, but I wasn't intending to have this conversation. The conversation I was intending to have. I thought I was gonna have. I don't mind having this, but it's more, it's less interesting for me. It's a little bit more boring, and I'll tell you why. Because the real thing I was interested, like, why Islam. I was willing to talk about ethics and morality, and I was hoping something like this. Like, let's say I believe, Islam allows for polygyny, and I was hoping you to say something like, well, you don't believe in polygyny. And then we could talk about that, like the ethics of
Okay,
polygyny.
that's fine.
But instead, I think what this is turning more into is kind of like an interpretive thing. Like what, am I interpreting Islamic law correctly, or are you interpreting Islamic law correctly? So this is more of like an interpretive academic discussion. And that's less interesting for me. I don't mind having
Gotcha.
that. I really
No, I
don't
got
mind
you.
having it, but
Hmm.
I think
I respect
and
that.
if anything, I think it might be important, because your understanding of Islamic law, I think, could be fine in some contexts, but it wouldn't be fine in like an academic setting.
Hmm. Got you. No, I respect that. I totally understand that. Now, I would like to do the approach that you want to go by. You could give me more understanding about the understanding of what you believe by Islam. But just to be clear, though, I didn't do it. I didn't do interpretation. I just read what the source said. I didn't say that. Put my own words in it. I'm just saying that it says the quotation what I said. I didn't add no words to it. Just to make that clear. Is that I referenced the Traveler book
I mean, no,
here
that's like
before?
that's a classic. I think so that's a classic treatise
Yeah,
on, yeah,
yeah.
on
So
Islam.
he was one of the major Sunni uh, uh, scholars and philosophers from the Islamic school of thought. So that's why he's reliable. He's literally one of the, like, your school of thoughts. You have school of thoughts, and he was one of the main people who created the school of thoughts. And this is his book. So so he's very credible. So I think if you quote him in a book, it'd be very credible because he's not like an unknown kind of figure in Islam.
That's right. That's right. But what I'm saying is, if I just relied on this, so I'll give you an example.
Oh no, no, oh no, no, I got you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. He's just saying if you only quoted from that book, it would not be reliable.
And not just that, if I only took him as authoritative. Meaning
Got you.
he may say something, but you could have somebody else say something different. So I'll give you an
Got you.
example. You said about the death penalty.
Yeah.
I studied with a woman scholar
Hmm.
whose father was a big jurist, an Islamic legal scholar
Hmm.
from Iraq.
Hmm.
His name is Taha Jabr Alwani, and he wrote a book on apostasy. Actually, you can look it up. You can go online. I think you can even find a free PDF if you're really interested in apostasy. I lean more towards like his view, and again, nobody can say. I mean, you could try and criticize him, but he is a well respected, trained, or he was. He passed away. He was a well respected, trained, traditionally trained Islamic legal scholar, and he gives his reasons and support, and he engages with like the tradition and different schools of thought. So the primary four schools of thought, he draws on those schools. He draws on like the companions and the prophet and even the Quran. So the point is not just to take him alone either, but the point is to take like a synthesis of all like these different people to try and come to like an understanding of. So when it comes to like specific rulings, that is, there's discussion around these things, of course, as I'm sure you know if you've read these things. There's discussion, but when it comes to like the model or the framework of Islamic law, um then I wouldn't say this book. This book is, from what I see, is like just a book of jurisprudence, a book of fiqh. So it goes through like the different like position on like practices. But when it comes to like just the kind of the philosophy, or like let's say the theory of law, this wouldn't be the book.
Got you. So how many scholars? So if the law in Islam, like you said, so you said the Sharia law. So Sharia law, if how many scholars or people that be reliable, like school of thought or whatever, that would have to agree to that one standard? What would you say?
How many scholars would have to agree in order? Do you mean in order for it to be a law?
Yeah, like anything. So like for example, believing in Muhammad. That's a universal standard. Everybody has to believe in Muhammad to be a Muslim. No scholar would disagree with that. Uh, so if you were to have a other standard or any kind of part of Sharia law, how many scholars that it be universal, like everybody have to agree with it, or there's like a hand group of people from the school of thought that have to agree with it? What would you say?
Okay, that's a good question. And I think so there are so I'll first, I should preface this by saying I don't think I know definite like 100%. Uh, because
You don't.
I don't
Okay.
because I
Gotcha.
don't want you to take me as like as some sort of expert. I'm not an expert. I said I'm an aspiring,
No, I get that. Yeah.
researcher. So I'm actually currently doing active research, and I would like to like, and I'm trying to research this to like write on this topic. But
Hmm.
it would seem now the reason why this is a good question is because, when I write this, and a lot of academics do this, I can try and like I can try and push a certain view and say it's Islamic. Like, hey, Islam is totally fine with, I don't know, just whatever whatever you can imagine, and I can say Islam is totally fine with it, and Muslims can say no, this guy is not being faithful to the tradition. He's not being faithful to Islam. This guy's like some heretic. So I would say it seems like, if like the different schools of thought have come to like agree on something, there's this concept called like ijma. I think if
Hmm.
you have like different scholars from even maybe like different schools who've come to agree on something, I think that gives like very, very strong evidence. It's almost like a scholarly consensus, like, scholarly consensus on climate change, for example. I think that gives a very strong evidence. And in fact, from what I was taught, it seems like that's even definitive. That's authoritative.
Got you. So, but as far as universal, so how would you source it if you were to say if you make that statement? Because as far as the universal agreement, you have to find a source that would be reliable or be creditable? Are you going by books? You going directly to the school?
Yeah,
Um,
so I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Let's use the death penalty in Islam. The death penalty in Islam, I think a lot of Muslims on this app will say that that yes, there's a death penalty. Sorry, a death penalty for apostasy. Like if you
yeah,
leave
under
the
Sharia
religion.
law, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of Muslims will say this. I think a lot of Muslims online say this.
Hmm.
And now, and then there's a question of like, hey, I'm the outlier, right? Um, so when you begin to like explore other scholars who are not typically given as much attention, you find that they also have evidence, support that goes back to the Quran, that goes back to the Prophet, that goes back to the companions. And so all it takes is just doing a little bit of research. Now, you could say, yeah, but I'm the outlier. But on what basis? On what basis would I be the outlier? Because if I have textual support on my side and they have textual support on their side, then no one could say that they have greater legitimacy apart from the fact that more people happen to subscribe to their view. And that just becomes a fallacy, right? The fallacy of like ad populum.
Mm, got you. So if it's based upon the actual verses from the Quran and the Hadiths, do they have grounds to stand upon? Then I'm trying to get understanding because, like, as far as like in Christianity, the Bible goes, I mean, there are denominations that differ from that go back to their own denominational teaching, but you have to have a main source and reliability based upon the scripture. So for Islam, based upon the Quran and the Hadiths, there had to be some universal truth, correct? Like some universal, like, okay, this must be agreed upon. There's no if muts or maybes, correct?
I believe so, but to be honest, I think I'm still like unclear of what you're saying. But could you give me an example?
Like for example, like Muhammad, like for Muhammad, very easy one. And Muhammad being a prophet, some Muslims, outside Muslims, would say that Muhammad is not the last prophet, but you could back it up by showing different Quranic verses and also different hadiths that would point to him being the actual last prophet. So there might be some Muslims that disagree with that, but if you point them to the actual verses in the hadiths, it was shown that that's the universal truth.
Okay, this is good. Yeah, I I do believe it would be a universal truth, but I also want to be fair to them. I think it would be universal truth, but they could always say like they have the universal truth. So I think maybe I don't know if you're trying to say this, but I would agree with you that at some point we're just going to have to say, look, a large body of scholars have
Hmm.
unquestionably agreed to this, so much so that it's just become an essential part of the of Islam. And I'm glad you brought up that example actually, because there are the Ahmadis. I don't
Yeah,
know if you're aware of them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
I've
they're
read
the
them.
Ahmadis, and
Yeah.
they try to claim that they're also Muslim. I don't think
Hmm.
that is, and I'm not saying this because I'm Muslim. I don't think that's factually correct because I
Hmm.
think and I get where they're coming from, and they do feel like they have a textual basis. But at some point, we're just gonna have to say, look, over time, a large body, like it wasn't even there wasn't question on this, well, except for from the like Ahmadi people, but a large body of scholars, like it's almost unquestionable that that there is this position that there's not going to be a prophet after Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So yes, I think on that I agree with you.
Yeah. So that's my main point. Based upon the Sunni perspective and teachings, that would be uh, undalable truth. So the same thing. So how would that be based? Those based upon that belief would be textual verses from the Quran itself and the Hadiths. So with any other understanding goes, as far as like um how about as far as like slavery or slave ship, like as far as those kind of things, would you say that if they were in the Sharia law, by that law, according to the verses in the Quran and the Hadiths, um slavery would be agreeable.
Absolutely. I mean, it went on for 1,000 years, so it would have to be. And
I was talking.
slavery predated Islam.
Yeah, I was talking to the host. Um,
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I wouldn't say slavery counts there. Um, I'm just being so I have my own views on this. I actually think so. I think it's more nuanced than just saying slavery is allowed or not allowed. There are again, I've been pressed on this because apparently like there are Saudi scholars who say slavery is in Islam, and those people who are trying to deny that are like these Muslim soft Western liberals. So you have Saudi scholars saying that about us, right? People here in the West, in America. So I wouldn't go as far as like what he's saying, but I also wouldn't go as far as like the Muslim liberals and say like, no, slavery was kind of like not, it was never really like, part of Islam. I wouldn't say that. But I take a more like maybe in between view. So now, although I should say, although that's my view, I have to be fair and say, well, it was one of those things that you could say is like kind of disputed by scholars.
got you. So, but if the Sharia law was active in the country and they had to stand upon the principles in the law, um, will you say that it would be acceptable?
Okay, so if you're asking my view, I
Well, based upon what from what you know, because I mean, I have read the books that talk about the Sharia law and how slavery is acceptable. It's like it's actually accepted. Now you could pay a jizya and different things like that to get out of it, but you will still have to conform to the Sharia law in some ways.
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you're asking so I should preface this by saying it's my view because you're gonna have I always want to just make people aware that when I'm talking about Islam, I'm talking about one strand of view that I actually think is most compelling, actually. But don't be surprised if you talk to someone else who's more influenced by like a Saudi background or an Egyptian background or something, and then they come with a different view or a different school of thought. So yeah, my view is that I do, and not just my view, by the way, mine and the people I read. Um, I do think that yes, of course, in modern times, slavery is not allowed. Slavery should not be reinstituted. Muslim scholars, I think, the ones I follow, they agree with that. But I do think I wouldn't go as far as to say it is just like totally or universally impermissible. What do I mean by that? I mean, in some hypothetical scenario, there could be situations where a Muslim takes slaves and where Muslims use slaves, or even where Muslims are slaves. So I can imagine a scenario. I'll give you one example. Let's say a nuclear blast, like a nuclear blast happens tomorrow or something, and then it kind of sets us back into like the Stone Ages. Then we're gonna go back to like resorting to slave workers. That's gonna be a large part of like what produces those produce brings about production and work. So if something like that happens, I think I wouldn't say that slavery would be impermissible. Um, so that's where I stand.
Okay, if it's somebody who wants to own slaves, and you say that there's other opinions that say that slavery is just fine, then you just look for those
Hold on,
opinions.
hold on,
You
brother.
just chop for those opinions.
Sorry.
Hold on, brother. All right. So I would disagree based upon that. So that's one thing. If the Sharia law was established, and then you said it based upon a hypothetical, I'm saying the hypothetical would be the Sharia law. It's a country that agrees to the Sharia law is fully supported based upon the different scholarships and the Quran itself. So even if that scenario would have happened and the Sharia law became a law, um, would you agree upon that principles?
If I think I'm not. If Sharia law became, if slavery became a law under Sharia law, you're saying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like it's part of it. So would you say? You would agree upon that, or no? You would disagree with it? Even if it happened now, like say that hypothetically, America became a Muslim country and adopted Sharia law, and that part of Sharia law is slavery. Would you agree upon it?
No, no. So slavery, no matter, even if there's a Muslim country, slavery is immoral in modern times. Just hands down.
Based upon your views and values. By modern standards, I'm saying that you're based upon modern standards. You agree that modern standards agree upon your values and your views, though. You believe that modern standards is a part of your values and views.
M-
So if modern standards had changed, would you agree upon it then? If everybody adapted to the Sharia law and said that slavery was okay, would you say, yes, I agree to that?
I think when you're saying everybody,
Yeah.
you're meaning, all of humanity, or you meaning
Well,
just like,
I'm saying that majority of the country, not because not everybody agrees to everything in the country, of course not, but majority of the country is Muslim. They adapted Sharia law. You live in this country, would you accept it?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, sorry. Can you repeat the question? Sorry about that.
So if I'm saying majority of the country is Muslim and they adapted the Sharia law, and you live in that country, would you accept it?
Accept Sharia law.
Yeah.
I don't think I would, to be honest. Like, when you say accept it, do you mean like just living by the land, or thinking that it really is Sharia?
Yeah, fully Sharia is living by, it's not just living by land, but it's they accept that law.
Uh,
They accept that understanding that is their standard for everything they conduct.
but I will. I think I just want to. I'll go with it. I'll.
So there are what fundamental issues
السلام
that you
عليكم
go,
ورحمة الله.
what fundamental issues that you disagree with the Sharia law?
Uh, so I should say, so like I think I keep circling back to the fact, like, of modernity. Like, we're living in a post modern era, so everything is fundamentally different. I think that's why when people tend to bring up things like apostasy law, Sharia law, slavery,
So
these
you're saying
things.
that so you're saying that morals and things change?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, 100%. Modernity did change the ethics of slavery. In fact, that's why.
But that's the same people that fight
Hold on,
for
hold on.
slavery.
Let me, yeah,
Okay.
just let me finish the
Okay, go ahead.
sentence.
Sorry.
Modernity did change the ethics of slavery. In fact, that's why you have what is called the quote unquote slavery conundrum, which was talked about by Jonathan Brown in his book Slavery in Islam. In fact, when you read it, one of the things that motivates his book is he says, how come for all of history you have people who didn't really think slavery was wrong? People didn't feel like slavery. You had people like even Aristotle, who's like, one of the founding fathers of like Western intellectual thought, who defended slavery. But and then, of course, even whether there are Africans, Latin Americans, Indians, Europeans, everyone practiced slavery. But it's only now that we find slavery morally repulsive, almost equivalent to like rape. What happened was modernity changed the conditions such that now slavery is just egregiously wrong. When I say modernity changes the conditions, it's not simply just that people think it's fine. So the wrongness of morality is not going to change if suddenly people think it's okay. Like the wrongness of slavery, slavery didn't just become wrong because everybody felt that it was wrong. So and again, Jonathan Brown mentions this in this book. There are things like, the advancements of technology, the fact that we're living in like with sovereign states. That's the fact, like with international law and even like advanced legal systems, more centralized legal systems. All these things play a large role. I think advancement of technology, the industrial revolution, all these things play a huge role in the eradication of slavery. Is slavery, by the way, I should say, slavery as it's practiced Islamically. But if we're talking about like the kind of American antebellum South type of slavery, that's always wrong, no matter what. So that wasn't even permissible, even even pre-modernity.
Got you. So you saying okay, but the Sharia law will follow Islamic slavery.
Can you clarify what you mean?
You said to require?
No, no. So you saying that you said that Islamic slavery will be okay. So I'm saying the Sharia law will follow the Islamic slavery because it's Sharia law. Sharia law is under Islam.
I think I don't know what you mean by Islamic law will follow slavery.
No, Sharia law will follow the Islamic standard of slavery because it's Islam. So it will not go. It will not make a own. It will not follow America's standard of slavery. It will follow Islam and how it was taught.
Yeah, it's not even called
I,
slavery in Islam.
I think just call me. I think one helpful thing to kind of like help with this is to let's remove Islam for a second and just talk about like what you personally feel. And I know you're Christian, so let's remove Christianity also. What do you when we think about slavery? What do you personally feel is the wrongness attached to slavery? It can't just be like, well,
Someone who was in captivity, someone who was bound to somebody else. That's wrong to me. Any form of slavery would not be considered right.
depending on how you spin it, there's some ways in which we can define slavery that that would be too inclusive, and it would even include modern day practices that we just completely turn a blind eye to.
Yeah, there's
Like,
still slavery in the prison system. 13th Amendment
yeah,
Yeah, so that's why I said that
abolish
those kind
slavery
of
in all forms
yeah.
except
That's why I agree with the prison
the
system.
punishment.
Yeah, I agree with this. I disagree with the prison system. I disagree with any form of slavery, no matter what you would define it. It would still be wrong.
Good servant. Do you agree with that or no?
No, anything that's a form of slavery
Okay, so for
will still be
example, if
wrong.
somebody, let's say somebody took out a loan for $500,000 and they didn't pay it back,
Yeah, I
and
believe.
they don't have
I
any way
believe.
of paying
I
it
believe
back.
what the Bible
What do you
teaches
think
about
should
jubilee.
happen?
So in the Bible, it talks about jubilee. Jubilee is a time of the year where all debts have been paid and wiped away, based
Yeah,
upon
but
your.
that's not you can't have an economy like that.
Well, who said you can't?
Who said what?
Who said you can't?
It's not feasible. It's not economically feasible to wipe away everyone's debts if everybody takes out $500,000
Nobody would
loans.
give you nobody would give you a loan knowing that it'll be wiped out in a few months.
But no, but based upon the hypothetical, he's saying that why would I view this? That's my hypothetical scenario is that everybody would conform to that understanding of jubilee.
But that's too
That's
ideal.
not economically feasible. And if you're trying to bring the Bible into it, the Bible allows
No, no, no. I'm just
slavery.
saying that would be my standard. Though. That would be my way outside of the Bible too as well. I would based upon that on my values. I believe that'd be the best way to go by.
Okay, but that's okay. You can go with that, but that's not realistic. It's not feasible.
Yeah,
I
that's
want
fine.
I want to say something, Justice. Just uh, this is an interesting, very interesting topic that I'm trying to write about, and I have written some things about this. I haven't published yet. But the thing about slavery is, so the reason why I say like we have to kind of like narrow down the definition is because of this. Many people who are social contract theorists, political philosophers who talk about justification for the state, going all the way to Kant, by the way, an Enlightenment philosopher, they thought slavery was at the forefront of their mind, and so when they thought about creating a system, a political system that will not allow other people to be subject to the arbitrary will of another person, this is my critique. My critique is they have ignored structural domination. There's a really good paper by Rafiq Hassan. I actually really forgot the title of the paper, but if you look up Rafiq Hassan, Maybe hopefully you find the paper, something on domination. He talks about how structural domination is really the only real domination that is the most concerning, and what makes domination what it is. And he uses slavery. So he talks about like how, you know, a slave, just imagine a slave who has to submit to the arbitrary will of his master. Now, of course, social contract theorists want to come up with this idea of the state that will allow for the elimination of people being subject to that kind of arbitrary will. But the slave, let's suppose this slave happens to be stronger than his slave master. Why can't he just beat him up and just like not do whatever the slave master wants? Well, because it's not just the slave master that has power over him. The slave master's power is legitimized by external forces. It may be legitimized by neighbors, might be legitimized by authorities, it may be legitimized by rulers. So it's actually the structure that imposes domination. And all these social contract theorists did unknowingly is that they just submitted their will to the state. So now people are not just subject to the arbitrary will of others; they're subject to the arbitrary will of the state. I can elaborate more on this, but but the simple point is this: the simple point is, I think if you feel like you want to go as far as to say, look, I think any kind of captivity or any kind of, you know, being subject to any kind of like arbitrary will is wrong. I might be willing to be on board with you, because I used to be really into like Marx, and I think that's like going along the line of like Marx, Marxist stuff. But I just kind of feel like this is going to open up a huge can of worms. It's going to be too inclusive, that we will have to start saying that even kind of like basic contractual agreements, um, consensual contracts become impermissible, and not just impermissible; they could even be egregiously wrong. And I don't know if I'm willing to go that far, especially if they're like consensual contractual agreements. Now, yes, there are some consensual contractual agreements or voluntary agreements that I do think are wrong. I just don't know how to articulate those yet. So, for example, like a prostitute who kind of like sells her body to someone, even if it's willingly, I'm inclined to think like those things would be wrong. I just have to figure out how to explain the wrongness exactly.
Well,
But I
bad news. Bad news. Shia scholars got they're way ahead of you, and they've been doing this for a long time. So they have a whole paper trail that says that it is okay.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, I just need to find ways to articulate that. But my point about just call me. My point to you is that I think your term. I think I like the direction you're going in, because by your standard, you could even begin to say like certain agreements that people have, even in employment,
Yeah.
especially if they lack exit options, would be wrong. I like that. But the problem is, I think you're going to be there's going to be so much in that umbrella to the point where it becomes unfeasible to even create an economically thriving
Well,
society, as Lee
well, I would
said.
say this. I would say that it would not be feasible. It would be unfeasible if it wasn't grounded on great principles created by a creator who is in charge of his creation. It would be unfeasible if a man were to put in charge and be the one who controls everything and makes sure everything is running smoothly. But if it's a society that's created under God Himself, and God Almighty is ordaining that society, and He is uh, opening opportunities, He is the one that's providing for everything. There's no need, and that's the universe. This universal understanding is. I don't want to bring religion back into it, because you say you want to go away from that Islam and Christianity, but the Bible displays this kingdom, this understanding of how God would create it in that standard. There would be no slavery, no bond. Everyone will be free. So that's what I would say. I say that it would not work under humanity as far as the man being in charge, but if God is in charge, then God will provide. So if you say that that's wrong, is this right here point to the direction of the point that I was making in the beginning about you saying that Islam has the better standard and moral standard. Well, if Allah was in charge, even though He's in charge and He's doing all these things, slavery would still be right in His eyes. Where you have the God of the Bible who denounced slavery completely. Yeah, he allowed man to do their own thing, but if He has a society that's made by God Himself who is in control, God would not
Where is
allow
that?
that.
What verse? What verse is that?
What verse is what?
What
You're
verse
talking
is
about?
that God in the Bible banned slavery completely?
Oh yeah, so you have multiple times in the New Testament and Old Testament where God he said it is wrong in doing. He said that no man should be bound. Well, he had multiple. I can't. I'm gonna point to multiple verses. So
Yeah,
you have the Book of
can you give
Revelations
me
talks about.
one so I can look it up? Because I
Yeah, so you
haven't
have the
found
book.
it.
Yes, yes. The Book of Revelation talks about the new kingdom. In that new kingdom, there's no one bound. In the Book of Galatians, Paul talks about. I believe he talks about there is no neither free, there is no neither a slave, female or male. Um, everyone to be free basically in that standard. 'Cause there's no slave. There's nobody that's bound to that. And then
Revelation, that's basically talking about when Jesus comes back, right?
yeah. So that's the kingdom that he would establish.
I just
Okay, but that's different. That's different than saying slavery is completely wrong. That's
No.
saying
So
when Jesus comes back, is gonna be a society, with those different things in it.
yeah, I'll say Galatians as well too. The book of Galatians, I believe, talks about that as well.
I quickly I
And then
just
you have
quickly want to say
yeah. Go ahead.
I quickly want to say I don't. And by the way, I don't. I hope I didn't want to be like misleading. I didn't mean to say that we shouldn't bring religion into it. I'm fine with that. But with the reason I said like let's put it away just for that brief second was to clarify like our views, because the critique that I had was I said I think the notion that the definition you have is a bit too inclusive. So when you say like Christian, we can bring back our religions, and I will clarify where Islam stands, but or at least where I think Islam stands. I should always give that disclaimer. But when you say that Christianity would endorse, it would completely remove slavery. The God of the Bible completely abandoned slavery. Fine, let's go with that and your definition. But see, your definition under your definition, God doesn't only forbid slavery, God forbids all kinds of voluntary transactions that may even benefit the person who is seeking the transaction, the person who willingly engages in the transaction. That seems a bit weird, particularly
No.
like let's say
So,
like what Lee
no.
said.
Hold on one second.
I'll
I didn't say. Yeah, I didn't say that God would disagree with the person that agrees to it. If he agrees to it and the other person not a Christian, uh, a believer, then in that standard, that person, like Paul talks about in his books, the Christian who is the slave, um, must obey his slave master because he's the other person not a Christian. Now if they both come to faith. Paul tells them they must release that slave. So it's very clear in the Bible that there are times where the Christian before he became a Christian or he was a Christian, he became in slavery, whether it's in that whatever happened, he might owe the debt or whatever, because that was custom in that time. There were slave people who became slave because they owed some money. That's not
There
that's
any
not
time
that's
was
not
there any
irrelevant.
time that God
We could
allowed slavery at any point of time? Did he allow slavery?